This episode of the Beer Bound Podcast is brought to you by Rolling Hops Beer Tours.
Hey everybody, Garrett here from Rolling Hops, as always joined with my partner,
Andy.
We're here to tell you guys about our virtual craft beer tour offering. With what's going on in the world, unfortunately, we haven't been able to run our historical craft walking beer tour, so we've pivoted to taking the virtual experience of craft beer directly to you guys. Wonderful for team building events, corporate events, even just a night out or in, for that matter, with your friends and family. And we're doing this online.
Have any questions about the beer tours or want us to tailor make an event for you? Just shoot us an email or send us a message on any form of social media. Rolling Hops, you can find us everywhere.
RollingHopsBeerTours.com is where you can get a hold of us, and we'll see you guys soon.
Cheers.
Okay, welcome everyone to another episode of the Beer Bound Podcast. We're very excited to be joined by Matt Small, Assistant General Manager at Trestle Brewing. Trestle Brewing is a small, independently owned craft brewery located in downtown Parry Sound, Ontario. The building opened its doors in 2018, standing on the original site that used to be one of Ontario's largest train stations. In the spring of 2019, Trestle added a riverside Biergarten, which grew its capacity to serve its thirsty clientele. Some of the beers found at the brewery include 30,000 Islands IPA, Arrow Pilsner, Rock Rye Porter, Big Sound Lager, and quite a few more. We're super excited to learn what Trestle Brewing has been up to in the last few years. And so without further ado, we welcome Matt to the Beer Bound Podcast. Hello, Matt.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir. Matt, start us off. Tell us who you are and your connection to beer.
Yeah, so my name is Matt Small. I work for Trestle Brewing Company in Parry Sound. As well as being an assistant general manager, I'm also a sales manager here. So I started taking on some sales work for the company back in the fall of 2019. I actually started here as a server, a bartender, just like so many other people in the industry, working at breweries, getting to know craft beer. Oftentimes they're serving it beforehand, and kind of took worked with LCBOs, worked with licensees in that role for a little while. And as we have the issue that we have here in the north, as many other places, is we have an issue with getting people to fulfill the roles that we're hiring for. So they couldn't find an assistant general manager, so I agreed to kind of take on some of those roles as well in the front of house. So in the restaurants, I generally work there once or twice a week, and mix that in with my normal sales gig. And in the last year or so, I've been kind of shifting away and getting into more of the operations side. So working with the brewery team and the production schedule and whatnot. It's been a cool change over the last little while for sure.
Yeah, very cool. You seem like a pretty young guy, Matt. Do you have what was your life before working at Trestle?
Yeah, so I grew up in Kitchener-Waterloo. I am a young guy. I worked here for the whole time that it's been open, so 4 years. When I was a kid growing up in Kitchener-Waterloo, we had a pretty vibrant beer scene. We had the Brick Brewery, obviously, and all of the dads that I was familiar with, everybody drank Waterloo Dark, right? And I tell people that story here, and nobody really knows. We know what Waterloo is now, but back then it was a very local thing, but I didn't really understand that at that time. So growing up in Kitchener-Waterloo, you get to an age where you start drinking. I shouldn't incriminate myself, but I did drink before I was 19 years old. And in late high school, we were able to try, different brews made by the Brick, and that kind of really started my path to beer and trying different beers aside from any of the big brewery brands out there in the world. And then when I graduated college, I moved up to Parry Sound, and my love for beer kind of fell into the brewery a little bit. And here I am now, 4 years in, and loving it just like the first day I started.
Yeah. So you moved to Parry Sound prior to actually having the position. Is that for working at Trestle? Is that right?
Yeah. So my now wife got a job up here. We moved up here.
That classic song and dance that we're all familiar with. Yeah, right. For sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. So tell us about Parry Sound. What's the town like? Is it something that you've kind of moved into and really embraced, or do you miss a larger urban space like Kitchener-Waterloo? Tell us about Parry Sound.
Have you guys been up here?
I think I've driven through it once, but never stayed around.
Seems to be the common story. People drive through 400 kind of. We're right on the 400. We're a Georgian Bay town. We're known as what's called the heart of the 30,000 islands. So 30,000 islands spans between closer to Midland and then just north of us to up to Pointer Barrel. And it's called the 30,000 Islands Archipelago. So we've got certainly a large summer tourism population. Our population goes from somewhere around 7,000 to 10,000 in Parry Sound and our surrounding regions to significantly more. I bet you it would tenfold. I don't know the exact number, but I bet you it would multiply by 10 at least. We certainly have that many people that come up here in the summertime. Do I miss urban centers? Man, not really. My cup of tea is being up here, being in the wilderness, enjoying the outdoors. We always, my wife and I always had the opinion that it was kind of like everybody always looks forward to weekends and getting up to the cottage and getting away from the city. And it's like, why do we want to look forward to weekends for that? I want to do it during the week too. So I get to get off at 5 o'clock every now and then and go out on the water for 6 till sunset. And, there's a lot of benefits of living in Parry Sound for sure.
It sounds very picturesque, and just the way you described it. Get off work and then hit the lake. Yeah. That sounds awesome.
Honestly, there's some nights like that where you take it for granted, but you get out there and it's just like you sit and watching the sunset and you realize how good it is in Parry Sound. We have a lot of people that are moving here during the pandemic, realizing they want to get away from the city, and I get why.
Yeah, we should move, Garrett. Toronto sucks.
Yeah, this is all just an elaborate scheme to get you to move up here. I'm working for the city to increase our population.
Yeah, it's working. It's really working.
I've seen the pictures. It looks beautiful. So
yeah.
Is Trestle the only craft brewery in Parry Sound?
In town, yes. So we have Norse Brewery, which opened actually 2, maybe 3 years before us, and they're just they're north of town, right off of the old Highway 69, and they're still operational. And then otherwise, we've got other like Muskoka Brewery, so like Sawdust City would be close. Clear Lake Brewing is another one. Muskoka Brewery, obviously in Bracebridge, and then there's some newer ones, so Catalyst and Canvas, both in Huntsville and Bracebridge as well. But yeah, we're the only ones physically in the town of Parry Sound.
Mm-hmm. And you're located right in the downtown core.
Yeah, so we're like we're actually somewhat not considered downtown, believe it or not. We're pretty well downtown. You can walk to us from downtown. We're right on the Seguin River, so you can kind of overlook Georgian Bay from our patio from the river. We're actually, oddly enough, we're on the there used to be an old law in Parry Sound. Everyone on the other side of the river used to be the drinking side of the river, and then so we're on the drinking side, we're on the wet side, and then the other side of the river is the dry side, so we're on the bad side of the river.
I like
bad
that.
side, fun side.
Yeah, it's the best side.
Yeah,
labels.
The best side. Yeah, that's right.
That's cool. I kind of want to talk about, so I was looking, kind of going back to what I said about checking out pictures, but Trestle has the iconic bridge on the can, of course, and then looking at some of the pictures, and you can see the bridge and all that. So I don't know, tell us about the bridge. Like, is it just a site? Is there a story behind it, or what's the deal?
Yeah. I mean, the design of the cans, you nailed it. Is obviously it's the design of our view from our patio. So you can see Georgia Bay in the background, the big Trestle Bridge, and obviously the can doesn't do it justice until you kind of like plant your feet here and you see how massive the bridge is. It's quite a sight. It is really our tallest structure in Parry Sound. Bridge was built in like 1901 or something, early 1900s, 1907 maybe, and it's the longest trestle bridge east of the Rocky Mountains. So it is quite a sight, and it's really known as like the skyline of Parry Sound. So when the guys, Chris and Dave, are my two bosses, they're the owners that started the company. They opened the company they bought the site in I might be getting my dates wrong. I want to say it was somewhere around 2015. It was, like you said in the intro, it was the site of an old railroad station. And then after the railroad station actually became a gas depot, oil depot. And so the property was for sale for some time because it had to undergo a big cleanup. All the soil was contaminated with gas, and nobody likes gasoline and soil. So they did that big cleanup, and were able to build. But the whole idea from the beginning is that this is what Parry Sound is. It's like if people identify Parry Sound as a certain thing, it's Georgia Bay, and then they recognize the Trestle right away. So it was kind of a no-brainer. We wanted to be a brand of Parry Sound and represent the area, and for them, the property really aligned with that, and things kind of got set in motion from there.
Cool. That's very, very iconic, and the fact that it's on the can, you name the brewery, and when you go there and you can actually see it, putting all that together, I'd say makes for a wonderful experience. I'm definitely looking forward to take part in that experience. When Andy and I, we keep saying we're gonna travel a little more around Southern Ontario, we'll definitely put that on the list. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, for sure. We're only 2 hours up to 400, guys. So come on.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah, that's really a lot closer than I think. When
are you guys in the city?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You guys must go 2 hours on the Gardner Expressway.
Yeah, I know. It's nothing. 2 hours one way.
Yeah. I'm working from home now. I do maybe 2 hours, which is like 400 to 500 trips to my fridge and back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Matt, because you are in a smaller market, just being in a smaller populated area, you mentioned tourism is a huge part of your economy, but that's principally in the summertime, right? So what about in like now in January? Do you really have a stronghold of the Parry Sound community? Is that kind of your major form of clientele now? You mentioned a little bit about you working to get your product into LCBO and beer stores. How far and wide does one have to go in order to find some good Trestle beer?
Yeah, that's a good question. So certainly, just like anybody else, we make our best dollar in the restaurant, so or in the front house at the bar. We do have two products, and generally we'll have a seasonal product every so often with the LCBO. So we are working closely with the LCBO. We're generally in anywhere between 100, 150 LCBOs on an ongoing basis. So people anywhere in urban areas can find our beer. And then we do work with a handful of restaurants. Obviously there's a ton of competition in the city. So our goal isn't really to dive into the city and get boots on the ground too often, but we do still have a few restaurant customers, licensee customers in the city. And then obviously being from Kitchener-Waterloo, I'm down there quite often. I do have a lot of people that I work with there. So if you are in Kitchener-Waterloo, you can certainly find our beer there, because I am there quite often. But yeah, as for locally in the winter time, we definitely shift. We have to provide a lot more programming. So tonight's Wednesday. I'm sitting up here, and we've got service going on downstairs again, which is great for the first time in a few weeks. But it's trivia night Wednesdays, so we fill the place on Wednesdays. It's not quite as full as it used to be back in full capacity days, but that's okay. So other programming is like we'll do euchre leagues on Thursdays. We'll do live music channeling on Fridays. We do have, I don't know if you guys saw this, we do have some like bubbles outside. So they're like garden igloos. They're heated and provides us a little bit more space than like our current setup inside, which certainly helps during the pandemic, to be able to get people out and feel safe and having their own kind of space.
Did you spread out into your beer garden? Is that where that is?
Yeah, no, actually. So our original patio is where we have some of the bubbles, and then we actually have some in our parking lot. With this regulation is still expanded into 2022, where we can have parking lot patio expansions. So we do have a couple bubbles in the parking lot. The beer garden is an amazing space in the summertime, but in the wintertime, it's there's a lot of snow to be shoveled. So we ask a lot of our staff already, and if they had to shovel snow every day, I don't think we'd have any staff left to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. Matt, can I ask you about working in a professional role within an industry such as the one that you're in, craft beer in Ontario, in Canada? Can you expand a little bit on your experience? Just sort of, you kind of started at the bottom and have moved up pretty quickly, which is awesome to see. Can you tell us about your experience, the industry itself? We talk to a lot of brewery owners and head brewers, but it's really good to get a sense from someone who works as a general manager or assistant general manager or someone in sales, kind of as a career. How do you view this market? Are you very, in terms of your passions, is it a perfect fit for you? And if someone was interested in, I don't want to open a brewery one day, I just love the culture and I want to work for a brewery. Can you tell us sort of what you would tell someone who would be interested in a trajectory like that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the best thing about working at a brewery is working with the people. We've got great people for us in our brewery specifically, but in the community as a whole, we've got a pretty close community. We've got lots of, I don't know. There when I first started shifting from a role as a server into sales, there's no lack of people that are wanting to like kind of build you up, right? So my first, your first sales roles, you kind of feel like you don't know what you're doing, especially coming from a serving role. While they are kind of hand in hand, they are the same role, but you're just in a different setting, essentially. You get to have a different perspective. You meet people that are looking to, build your education on beer, looking to help you do better in the industry. We have definitely an open industry. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank a little, guys, but yeah, generally, like, it really, what it comes down is what it comes down to is the people. Like, the people I work with are great people to work with every day, and that's what makes it such a great place to be in. The servers that we have, the brewers that we have, the office admin that we have, we've got a pretty small space, so everybody gets to know each other pretty well. And I think that definitely gets to be a help more than a hindrance. For people that would be coming into the industry, I think keep an open mind, right? Like, come in, don't don't expect that you know everything about, if you're a craft beer person, don't expect that you know everything about craft beer, you know everything about beer when you first start, because there's always things to learn. There's people that have been doing this for much longer than me, and I'm sure are still learning. I've been in the industry for, what did we open 2018? So about 4 years, and it's like every day I'm learning something new. And I have a fortunate role where I've been able to certainly move up and get to have new experiences and learn different parts of the industry and how things work, how the machines go and whatnot. But I think really what has helped me to succeed is that openness to kind of want to learn more and understand what the industry is and what it's like.
You mentioned that moving into a sales role can be a bit tricky. It's obviously really different from the hospitality side to a brewery. I'm always fascinated in this portion of craft breweries and microbreweries in a thriving location like Southern Ontario, where you have an enormous amount of competition. Now, albeit it's friendly competition, there seems to be no bad blood, at least I'm sure there's some maybe, but seems like there's just a lot of friendship within the craft beer community. However, you still are running a business. So I'm always fascinated to learn a little bit more about, okay, if you're operating the sales engine of a brewery, how do you kind of tweak your image, your brand, your reputation to be just a little bit nuanced or a little bit different in order to attract new customers, new clientele? Now, in a place like if you're the only brewery in town, that's kind of an advantage. But on the macro scale of, okay, getting your product into the LCBO, selling it at different bars, different locations, how do you sort of tweak and find a nuanced approach to marketing yourself?
Yeah, and I mean, and I'll take it back a bit. Yeah, like there's a lot of breweries, and similar to us, like really at a base level, what we are is we want to be like sort of a local publican house, right? Like we want to provide as fresh as possible beer in a small area, and that's really what craft beer is. What it started as is people were getting old beer and sick and tired of it. And even, you get imported beer, and there's a lot of great imported beer out there, and you can still get fresh imported beer from LCBO and beer store, but there's a lot of old stuff out there, and people want to have that freshness. People want to have that local connection. For us, how we make ourselves different is, our brand is Trestle. It's Parry Sound. It's Georgia Bay. So we're not trying to be an urban brewery. We're not trying to compete with some of the big guys in the city. Our goal is to really like run the ship up here. We want to like be a local force. We want to be a Parry Sound brand. We want to be recognized in this area. And then for folks that come up and tour up here in the summer, if they're looking to get our beer in the fall and in the winter time down south, great. Like we have those outlets to be able to do it. But our goal is certainly not to like go down and compete with people in the city, people in Ottawa, whatever, right? It's not it's there, like you said, there's so much competition down there. Is it really worth like putting money into like competing with the 6 breweries that you can throw a rock at, probably from like how many breweries are in a 20-kilometer radius from where you guys are?
Thousands. No, not that many.
A handful at least.
Yeah. Dozens.
Dozens. So like what are we gonna do if we go plop ourselves? If I go drive down there and I'm gonna go talk to whatever restaurants and whatever restaurant's gonna tell me, hey, like I get it, you guys make good beer, and we do, but so-and-so makes good beer, so-and-so makes good beer, and they're like right around the corner. I pick it up myself or whatever, right? Like it's not the game that we want to get into. If people want to go and support us in the city, then we're all for it. But we want to run the ship here, and we want to do it well here.
That's good.
Yeah.
Stick to your homegrown strengths, I guess, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, maybe even to that effect, I was, poking around on the website and looking up a couple of things, and I saw something pretty unique, and that's, I guess, the draft craft delivery, which I thought, I don't think I've seen anywhere else before. And it says you could drop beer off to, it seems like a cottage, which makes sense, I guess, in the area that you are, but also like an anchored vessel, which is really interesting. You have to give a longitude, latitude. I don't like, how did that come to be? That sounds very cool.
Yeah. So we got a Stanley boat. Stanley is a local boat manufacturer. See you, buddy. In Parry Sound, they make stainless steel, or they make steel boats. And us being on the Canadian Shield, I got people coming up and bugging me. The restaurant's starting to close down. But us being on the Canadian Shield, we've got fiberglass boats don't do too well out here. So we've got this local manufacturer, and we bought a boat, and with the intention of starting this draft craft delivery. We've got a few accounts, like licensee accounts that are on the water. So we've got like Henry's Fish and Chips. We've got Gillies. We've got probably 3 or 4 that are on the water. So we could already mix in deliveries to those folks. And we thought, let's see if we can try to bring beer to people. The one issue that we kept having in Parry Sound is people really didn't like coming into town. They'd come up on weekends, they'd go right to the cottage, and they'd hang out at the cottage. So we were thinking, what can we do to try to bring beer to people rather than bring them into town? Because obviously we're struggling with that, or the town is struggling with that. And the draft craft was a natural evolution from that idea. So we go out on Thursday and Friday afternoons. The 2 owners, they're in their 50s, and while they've owned the brewery for 4 years, it's being a business owner takes a lot of toll on you. So they're trying to get out on the water as much as possible. We've supplied kegerator systems to customers as well to try to prevent as little cans going out on the bay as possible as well. But I mean, going back to it, we have tons of islands up here. So there's a lot of cottages, there's a lot of tourists, there's a lot of people out on the bay to surf. That's
Pretty cool. Like, obviously the last 2 years of the pandemic and everything, home delivery has become a very big option. So now you got, I guess, cottage delivery. And just out of curiosity, do you know how many of those are actually just boats, just like sitting offshore, just like, I want to buy a whole whack of beer and drop it on the boat?
Not many. I mean, we get a few. There's a few marinas that have offered it, and we've done it through the marinas, but not many. There's a few areas where you can go and like anchor off of Crown land, but we haven't had too many boat requests to drop off at certain boats. That'd be cool though.
It would be pretty cool. I guess I just picture a large barge just full of people having like a weekend and then getting beer delivered right off the boat. It sounds pretty interesting. But that's a fantastic idea to, sort of taking advantage of obviously the landscape that you're in and the clientele and getting the beer to where it needs to be is fantastic. It's a wonderful sort of entrepreneurial evolution. I love that.
Yeah, for sure. With benefits too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matt, what's your favorite beer?
I love Pilsner, so I'm a big Pilsner fan. We make a German Pilsner here called Arrow, and that's what I can't get enough of that Pilsner. What about you? What are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking. It's a lager. I think it's from a brewery in Toronto called Shacklands. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Yeah,
I know Shacklands.
But what is it about lagers, Pilsner specifically, that interests you, Matt?
I feel like in beer, in like your personal beer trends, maybe you guys can relate. I always go like in these swings of like really craving hoppy beers and then really craving like lagers and then maybe really craving like and it's like generally like months on end. I feel like Pilsners are always like that, like nice, wholesome blend of like a lager and some bitterness and like a little bit of punch. So I feel like Pilsner specifically, it's always like it's a safe space for me, you know?
Like
Good point. I'm definitely on that train of it depends on my mood. There's some days like, yeah, get me like I need a triple IPA. That's the only thing that's going to quench my thirst.
Hard day at work, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, hard day at work. And there's obviously some days where it's like, yeah, it's nice to have like a good, cool, crisp, refreshing lager. I'm a big saison fan, so like that'll trump anything if it's in the fridge. If I can go for that, I definitely will.
Yeah, I like saisons. I mean, I'm not a big, I don't know what it is. I think it's Belgian yeast. I'm not a big Belgian beer fan generally. So like I'll enjoy them and I'll have like one, but I'm never like going on a kick where I'm having like a bunch of saisons or a bunch of Belgian beers.
Yeah, some Belgian styles might be tough to have one or two, depending on if it's like a double or a triple. You might not make it to the end of the night if you have 3 or 4 of those. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's actually, I really like what you said, Matt, about, yeah, like I've never really articulated that before, but I do go through these cycles essentially of like, just for the last like 4 months, just been like, I just want IPAs, like just give me the hops.
Yeah.
But then like, I'm kind of getting over that. I'm kind of like, yeah, just even having this lager, it's just like, this is actually pretty nice. It's just smooth and crisp and lovely.
For sure. And you drink, you drink enough IPAs and then you're like, kind of like, okay, like the hops is good. And they were all like, I had a lot of good beers, maybe some bad ones, but like, now you're going to go on a lager kick. Watch Andy.
I think you're right. I'm just going to go have 7 more of these after the podcast. Matt, you mentioned the Arrow Pilsner. Is that sort of, would you say that that's your principal beer, your flagship? Can you tell us which beers are your most popular, maybe the ones that you're most interested in?
Yeah, so we have our flagship is actually our Golden Ale. It's the first beer that we released. It's a Pilsner inspired beer, so it's got some similar flavors, but it's a lagered ale, so along the same lines of I hate to say a Kolsch because it's not a Kolsch, but somewhere between a Kolsch and lagered ale Pilsner inspired beerish, along those lines. That's our flagship. We sell that to LCBO and grocery. That's generally, if people know us for anything, that's what they know us by. It's extremely consistent. It's an excellent beer. And we by far, far and away, we sell more of that beer than any others. We also have we have a flagship IPA that we also sell to LCBO and grocery. And then otherwise we do our head brewer here, Matt Lyons. My opinion is he does exceptional lagers. So we generally try to mix in a handful of lagers at any given time. So we've got Czech dark lager right now. We've got a Helles lager that we do pretty consistently, and we do more of like an American style lager. So it's got some corn in it, a little lighter body, lower alcohol, and it's quite good. We'll do a Marzen beer every year as well, and for Oktoberfest. And that is generally a pretty good success. And then obviously that Pilsner that I mentioned. Then otherwise, I mean, it's winter, it's time for dark beers, right? So we've got a couple stouts usually in the mix. We've got a rye porter, which we do. A lot of breweries don't usually work with rye. And we don't do a ton of it either, but for this beer specifically, the kind of earthy spiciness of the rye works really well with kind of those dark malt characteristics.
Yeah, I saw that. And typically you don't see too many beers brewed with rye, so it's nice to have that. And a rye porter too, of all things. I don't think it's a little, even a little more unique.
There's a brewery in North Bay, and they work with rye quite a bit. But otherwise, there's certainly a lot of breweries kind of shy away from rye for sure.
It's very Canadian rye.
It is very Canadian. Yeah.
Matt, do you have any experience at all with the brewing process? Is that something you've done in the past or something that you're interested in potentially pursuing at all?
Do I want to brew here? No. God, no. I'm scared that I'd screw things up too bad. Have I had do I know about the brewing process? Yeah, I know all about it. I've done, some home brews with the guys here in the brewery. I don't have a home brew set up myself, but that's really the extent of my actual hands-on brewing is kind of joining in with them in the back in the brewery and helping them do that. What about you guys? You guys do some brewing?
Not yet. That's actually on it's on the rolling hops list for this year, is to finally get our first rolling hops brew together. So we're looking into that, putting some equipment together, and hopefully in the next couple months we'll have something ready to roll.
Gary, you already started. You got some equipment, I think.
Not yet.
Oh, never mind.
All you need is a stovetop. Don't be too disappointed when you taste your first batch.
Oh no, I'm going into it with zero expectations and just I'm reading the How to Brew book by I think it's John Palmer, and going through the steps, and I have my whole list of equipment ready to go. So it's going to be calculated so that ideally everything that goes into it is, as by the book as it possibly could. But yeah, zero expectations obviously on a first brew. We're excited just for the process, and with Andy and I, we talk the talk a lot. We just don't really have the space to walk the walk. So but now we do, and we're hoping to get started on something like that. We're excited for it.
Yeah, we talk the talk a lot, but we got to start brewing a little bit in order to make ourselves a little bit more credible.
I get that. I've kind of gone back and forth of do I want to shell out some money and do a home brew setup at home, but yeah, legit, all you need is a stovetop and you can kind of make things happen, But there is a system that one of our assistant brewers has, and I want to say it's made by the same company that we get our keg readers from. It's called the Kegland system, and it's kind of an all-encompassing system where you can do everything in one system. You can ferment it in the same system as you brew it, which is really nice. I think it's called Brewzilla. Yeah,
I think I have heard of that company. Yeah,
but he loves that thing, and I've kind of thought about doing it, but it's $500. Buy a lot of beer for $500.
Made by professionals.
Yeah, that's right. One day I'll get on board and do it as well as you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll have to swap some home brews at some point then.
Yeah, right. For sure.
The Matt Small beer, the Matt Small Pilsner.
Yeah, blank labeled bottle. It's always a good time when you get a blank labeled bottle from a home brewer.
Ooh, what's in that?
Yeah. And it sits in the fridge for 6 months to age even more. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that's the good stuff.
Matt, I used to ask this question a lot. I haven't asked it in a while, so I'll bring it back up. Do you see that? It's funny to make any predictions now, coming sort of out of COVID, if that's where we are, who even knows. Do you see the market in general, craft beer? Do you see the growth starting to really come back in terms of maybe new breweries starting to open up, maybe consumers starting to purchase more beer? Just obviously in the last 10 years, the 10 years prior to COVID, the growth in craft beer in a place like Ontario was enormous, exponential.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, are you bullish in terms of, do you think that growth is going to come back? Do you think it's sustained itself? Do you think the growth has stood the test during these past couple years? What's your sort of take on the idea of growth in the industry?
Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. I mean, obviously you can't predict the future. I was reading one thing recently, and it was a bullish guy, and not in craft beer specifically, but talking about after the First World War, the Roaring Twenties that preceded. And after the First World War, they also had a pandemic. And I wonder if we're somewhat in the same process now, and if we will have that in our economy, in our whole North American economy, not in beer. So that is one thing that I consider. Obviously, we have this ebb and flow with ready to drinks and with seltzers and whatnot, and they are without a doubt taking a chunk of market share from beer, from the whole beer industry, not craft beer, but including big beer. So what does that look like moving forward? I don't know. I think that good breweries will continue to expand and grow. I think there's going to continue to be places in marketplaces for breweries to open and exist and thrive. I think probably there will be a period where we see a flattening of the growth trajectory in craft beer. Like we can't sustain, we're lucky in Parry Sound that we have one brewery in Parry Sound, but there's communities that are similar size to us that have multiple, right? And not just two, maybe three. And I can't see a place like us even sustaining two breweries or three breweries, let alone other places. So I think there's certainly a lot of room for growth still. I think there's room for breweries to open and expand. I think there's room for us individually to expand and continue to grow. Like we're by no means at the top of our trajectory. But yeah, I know that's kind of a whirlwind answer, but that's the truth. Is I don't know. I think there's room for more, but I think there's a point where we don't have any more breweries that can open physically. And I think at that point, it'll just be a brewery closes, another opens. A brewery closes, another opens. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's my perspective.
Kind of get to a point where we flatline, so like just there's no more mouths to feed beer.
Yeah. But beer is the third most consumed beverage in the world, right?
I like that fact a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great fact. And that's not going to change. Beer is going to continue to be consumed en masse forever. Like beer is like one of the oldest beverages in the world, like it's not going to go away by any means.
It's not going anywhere. Yeah. Matt, has there been any rumors or any talks of another brewery opening up in Parry Sound ever, or that's never happened?
Every now and then there's a whisper that comes through, and then it kind of settles out. So no, I haven't heard anything as of late. We're obviously we're at a 2-year mark of a pandemic, so I don't think that I know that there's been places that have opened during the pandemic, and I don't think that anybody wants to be doing that locally. There is Crofters Jam is a local jam company, and they used to have their production facility right next to us. And a gentleman purchased it, and he's going to be opening a distillery. So we're actually going to be having a distillery right next to us. Excuse me, which is new for the area. We don't have any distilleries. It's cool and exciting. A lot of cross marketing potential and cross branding potential to be able to have another local alcohol producer right next door.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the local craft distilling has sort of picked up a lot as well over the last few years.
Yeah. Oh yeah, big time.
More rye.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the first thing. Like I get customers through the retail shop, and they see rye porter. It's like, oh, I drink rye at home. I'd like this. It's like, no,
that's not what it is.
Not the same.
And it's a little different, but sell it to them anyways.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you'll turn into a rye beer kind of guy. You never know. So Matt, I wanted to touch on one other thing. I know Andy asked you about sort of the craft beer industry as a whole, but given that you had, you're the sales manager over at Trestle, obviously there's been many different changes with regards to, how craft beer is sold, and especially in the last 2 years with the pandemic and things like that. But do you see maybe any changes in the future with how craft beer is distributed and sold throughout the province or throughout the country? Do you see any trends, or do you think it'll be just kind of status quo?
I mean, obviously there's a huge growth in restaurants being able to sell cans to go. Like that's a huge change to our provincial red tape that we've had in the past. I think it's great for restaurants, and it sounds like that's going to continue to happen where restaurants can continue to sell beers to go. Other changes, I mean, how it's sold, will continue to be selling. Like the LCBO will continue to be the largest retailer of alcohol in the world. That's not going to change. Are we gonna have convenience stores? Maybe at some point. Who knows? I think that it'd be good for the industry. I mentioned our head brewer earlier. He worked out west for a number of years in BC and Victoria, and he talks about the industry out there, right? And it's like the access to all different styles of beer and different styles of beer from different breweries are at your fingertips. And one of the reasons is just the accessibility of it, being able to go to convenience stores, being able to go to liquor stores. Yeah, they're closing down. Can you guys hear the music down there?
Like a little bit in the background.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds great.
Yeah, they're enjoying themselves. But yeah, I mean, do I see huge changes coming? I don't know. I don't think so. I think maybe the biggest change might be convenience stores can start to sell our beer. Is that kind of what you're asking, Garrett? Did I get it?
Yeah, exactly. Just obviously with the differences in distribution, and that's been the big one in cans to go, and just having that allowed. I know some places you have to order food to get beer and alcohol to go along, so little changes like that. I guess the sky's the limit with regards to technically where it could be sold. But yeah, convenience stores, I've heard that argument being made a few times actually. And we're part of the craft beer community, and we're always on craft beer Twitter and all the social spheres. And one of the bigger arguments was like, okay, how is it going to stay fresh? Is it going to be good? Like, are you going to have actual convenience stores who care about the product enough to make sure that turnover happens enough, and they're not just sitting out stale beer and things like that? But I say this time and time again, we're all for extra options and more availability. Obviously it'll come with its own challenges, but be interesting to see.
And beer freshness, I think, like I completely agree. That might be the biggest issue that would come from it is obviously convenience stores. They're not going to have a hand in making sure that beer is fresh on the shelf. Mm-hmm. But I mean, similarly with LCBO and grocery stores, it's up to breweries to make sure that their beer is as fresh as possible on the shelf. We have the option to swap out beer if it gets to be past the date that we're comfortable with. And I think if convenience stores can sell beer, it'll be up to breweries to be able to manage it and make sure that their beer is as fresh as possible for consumers. And those that don't abide by that are going to be the ones that suffer because, just like you guys, I go, and if I'm shopping for other beer on the shelf, I'm looking at the bottom of cans. I'm looking at the necks of cans. I'm looking at the dates on it. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be buying a beer for $3 to $4 and then go home and find out that it's gone bad, it's oxidized or whatever, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, actually, the point that you mentioned, so like the breweries, I wasn't aware of this, but breweries can go in and like pull cans if they know that it's been past X amount of date. There's not like a set time frame where the LCBO says, hey, it's got to be this way or be here for this long anyway.
From my knowledge, I don't believe that the LCBO keeps track of like expiry dates. So for us, we keep track of our package on dates. We don't put best by dates. I know the industry standard is to put package on dates. I think that's a great thing. Yeah. Package on should be the industry standard. And we keep track of where our beer is on shelf. And if we feel like it gets to be past a point that we like, then we call that LCBO and say, okay, we want to go swap out whatever. They got 12 cans or 24, or hopefully not too much more. But and we'll go and swap it out. Like, we want to make sure that our customers that are buying our beer from LCBO is getting like as good a product as possible.
That's cool. I didn't necessarily, like, it makes total sense 100%, but I don't think we've ever actually talked about that as being an option. But yeah, it's interesting, good to know. And obviously, LCBO being a big avenue for distribution, you want to make sure that it's quality stuff going out. So that's cool.
Matt, as we get closer to that 1 hour mark, I just wanted to ask you about the rest of 2022. Anything that we should be looking forward to for the next 11 months? Anything that Trestle has planned for this summer? Anything coming up that you want to tell us?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, like, I don't want to say we want to keep status quo, but we kind of want to like proceed as we have in the last couple of years and just really refine what we're doing. Make sure we're doing things what we know as good as possible. As for like events, we are running it's called the Big Sound Comedy Festival, in conjunction with a beer festival that we're going to be hosting at the brewery here. That's going to be taking place in May. So we've partnered with the Icebreakers comedy team, and we've got I was going to call it a music hall, and I think it would be considered a music hall, but it's going to be hosting comedy. But the Stocky Center is a local place here, and they have facilities to host a bunch of people. So we're going to be hosting the Big Sound Comedy Festival there one night in May. I believe it's the weekend before the May long weekend, on the Saturday, and then we're going to have a beer festival on site here the Friday and the Saturday as well. So we're looking forward to that. There's a lot of moving parts to make sure that kind of goes off without a hitch. Otherwise, we're looking to grow, like, obviously the amount of beer that we're producing on site, and hopefully being open between now and the end of summer and without lockdown from now on would be great, where we can continue to grow and expand how much beer we're making. That's the end goal.
Sounds super amazing. I love like the slow marriage of craft beer and comedy. You see that more and more, like comedy shows just attaching themselves to craft breweries, or like craft breweries affiliating themselves with comedy events. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of been a natural progression. We had a couple comedy shows here, and who knew beer and laughter would go well together, right?
Who knew?
Weird combo.
And yeah, and they went well. And then it was just like, I think over a couple of pints, we were talking with a guy that Icebreakers. It's like one idea led to another, and here we are. Yeah, so it's exciting. We're excited for it.
Cool. Amazing. All right. Well, Trestle Brewing in beautiful Parry Sound, Ontario. Matt Small, thank you very much for your time. We look forward to chatting again soon.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt.
Cheers. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all our interviews and beer-related content. Remember, craft beer is here.